Hello, Rosa. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Eddie?
Awesome. I love that energy. I'm doing great as well, Rosa. Thank you so much for asking. Today, I want to have with you a conversation about your consulting services that help organizations with founder-led sales create the recurring revenue machine so that users of the CloudTos marketplace can identify if your service are a good fit for their needs or not. There's three questions I want to cover with you, Rosa. And particularly, I want to cover the angle that you have all the experience as a seasoned sales consultant working for Series A companies and scale ups in Latin America, particularly the companies that are embracing the United States sales as a science business model and expertise. My first question to you, Rosa, is going to be who is the best fit for this service offer?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity, Eddie. I'm really excited to be here and be part of the marketplace. Who is the best fit for this service offer? It's actually, like I said, the Series A or scale up companies, the ones that were created by that founder with word of mouth, that grew their business to a certain level with their great products, their great reputation, but it's getting to the point where they've plateaued. They're right now flat and they can't really go to the next go to market. They really can't go to the next level of growth because now they need a more solid structure. They need more of a methodology, playbooks, so they can embrace that process that is repeatable and a process that is scalable. So if you're in that moment when you're like, okay, my sales are not continuing to grow, what can I do? This is the time to start setting up structure.
Perfect. So ideally, stagnant companies that were growing, right? You mentioned Series A, ideally, but they're just struggling to reach their next height, their next level in the growth ladder. They can definitely use your consultation services to take a look at the revenue machine and make sure that it's well-oiled machine operating, producing revenue in a way that is predictable and scalable. So that takes me to my next question, Rosa, which is what are the components of your service offer?
Okay, so the way I start first is looking at the diagnosis, right? But because this company haven't really had a formal structure, it's kind of hard to go and look at the data because the data sometimes doesn't give you all the information. So we start with talking to the founders and understand really that value proposition, that business model. I call it the flywheel, right? What is the components that are going to get that flywheel keep going and growing and growing and becoming more powerful? Many times I start with that question, and founders have different opinions, right? The CEO has a different opinion than the CEO. So this is the beauty about having a moderator to come and say, well, we probably started with this in mind, but now throughout the years, we've discovered that we have, stayed in a different go-to-market or a different product market fit. So I start by cleaning all that up, and then I move to the most important part. I talk to the customers, right? Because I want to learn, why did people buy the product? Why did they buy the service? And believe it or not, many times the answer is different than the reason why the founders start selling the product. So it is not completely different, but the pain is a bit different, the value proposition, and the most important, the impact that the customers got out of the product and the service becomes very different. So I start by bringing in the information from the outside, and that's where we go. We're like, okay, now that we have a solid value proposition, now that we can really understand what your message needs to be, let's start by figuring out what was the journey of these customers. Now that is different than the sales process, right? We can think about the sales process. At first, we make the lead, we make the phone calls. But what I analyze is what was the journey that these customers went through from the moment that they were aware of the need to the moment that they bought and they were onboarded, to the moment what I call they got the first value. So there are mainly three big components of this process.
Got it. So, one of the interesting things as I hear you describe the service, your consulting services almost feel like business therapy, starting with at least that alignment of vision between the C suite and the leaders of the company, just making sure that everyone is aiming towards the right or the same north on their compass, let's say. And once that alignment is done, then you go in and dig deeper with your, or in this case, your clients, existing customers, to better understand their journey, update it, because you don't go straight to updating the sales process if you don't understand what the buyer process is, or the buyer's journey rather. Once that journey is updated, then it's worth revising the process to see if we're selling, if we're making impact in the right communication moments, etc. Right?
It's correct. It's funny that you mentioned that because I always feel that bringing the founders together and the people that, work in the company in one room is very important. It's like therapy because I need to coach them to organize their thoughts. Sometimes you don't know why things are not working. Sometimes you're so inside the process that you really can't step out and look at everything. So I start with helping them kind of put their ideas together, and I'm just the moderator of everything that they already know, actually, but they really can't see or that they can't elaborate on.
Perfect. Now, you walk me through the diagnosis stage of the process, which would be early when they hire you. But there's a couple more things that I bet take place when someone hires you. So that leads me to my last question, which is, what can a client typically expect in the first 120 days of hiring you as a sales consultant? Aside from the diagnosis, walk me through the time frames, how long on average is the engagement going to be? And again, aside from the diagnosis, what other elements or modules or coachings or best practices they can expect from this service?
I'm going to tell you that what the client can expect is an increase in sales. And it happens in 3 months. It's happened, and I know how it works. I don't know what it is that it just that 3 month mark, you start seeing the sales. And you can see it by not only the salespeople increasing the sales, the founders being able to have more clarity of what the message needs to be, but revenue absolutely works on that 3 month mark. And many times it could go literally from not having any leads. This has happened with a company with mine in Argentina, that they had a quarter where they couldn't close anything, to a 75-80% growth just by organizing. But organizing is more than diagnosis. Organizing, everything is about coaching and helping you with the mindset. Many times you're doing the same thing over and over again. You're not going to grow without doing the same thing over and over again. So part of this delivery is not just, I'm going to do the diagnosis, I'm going to give you a customer journey, I'm going to tell you what metrics to measure and how long it is, you should be working on a deal or from the lead to close. But I am going to coach you and help you with that mindset, that narrative, gives you that motivation to understand what you already know you need to do. But sometimes, like you say, you need a bit of coaching and therapy to get it out of you. So I'm going to give you the data, and I'm going to give you that hard skill, data-driven decision making. But I'm also going to work with you in the soft skills. I'm going to teach you how to communicate with your team. We're going to talk about language. We're going to talk about motivation. We're going to talk about using the same language with the same words, so we all understand what are our handoffs from team to team. So it's the combination, I guess. It's a holistic view at how to grow business.
Awesome. So it sounds like as you said, it's not only revenue growth, that's the ultimate goal of going through this process with Rosa. And I want to dig a little bit more into your experience in just a second and what makes you such an expert, such a seasoned sales consultant to bring impact to these Latin American companies. But before I go there, just quick recap. So, revenue growth is what they're seeking, and it's ultimately the goal. But they still go through a process in which they not only receive this coaching or these advices, these best practices, but there's also some deliverables. You mentioned a mapped out customer journey, a clear criteria of the reporting and the KPIs they should be looking at, depending on, of course, the type of reps or teams and how they have it structured, right? I would imagine that goes into play. How long, you mentioned the sales cycle should be, how long they should be based on the product that they're selling. And I like at the end that you mentioned is not just like an intervention of or just an operational consulting service in which, hey, just change this, change that, and that's it. But rather also work on hard and soft skills for the leaders that hire you so that once they have this new machine, they know how to drive it. They know
That's
how to
right.
coach their teams, how to hold them accountable, how to continue pushing up and not revert and stay stagnant, which is what they're trying to avoid. Now, so with that quick recap, I want to touch a little bit on your experience. Before the camera started rolling, you were telling me how you work at different companies in the United States in a very demanding, um, let's say, environments, different startups or big corporations that you've worked at. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your experience so they get to realize, oh, so this is why Rosa has so much experience and this is why she can make such a big impact in Latin American companies.
So what I always say is that I have the scars to prove it. So in other words, I started as a salesperson, right? I started as a salesperson and I moved up the ladder on large corporations. So I was a national sales manager on 3M, director in Nokia, and I was finally a chief revenue officer of a public company. So I have the experience not only about being a salesperson and have made the mistakes that a lot of salespeople have made, but also how to communicate, right? Because it is very difficult to communicate within a political structure of a corporation, how to communicate with board of directors, how to have specific plans. And so my background is to be an engineer, but as a Latina, I am an expert storyteller. So I think that the experience that I bring is not only this analytical learning how to read the data from a CRM and implement it, but also that whole storytelling. When I come and talk to you, I will tell you about experiences that I have that you can relate to because I've gone through all of those, right? And in the last couple of years, what's helped me is working with Winning by Design. I've actually helped companies on different stages of growth. So usually either the smaller startups or larger startups or scale ups where they have a group of salespeople and they went super great. They grew very fast, like it's happened in Silicon Valley. But then they become stagnant and they start firing people, letting them go because they can't seem to continue to grow. So I come and say, when you start to grow, it's easy to be a leader, right? When there's money flowing, super fast and super fun to be a leader. But when you're trying to build a sustainable business, that's when it becomes a little bit more difficult. That's when the culture starts to become a part of your growth and your success. So I have gone through all this and I've had many conversations, but I have lived it myself. I have myself managed people. And I'm going to tell you, I'm always very clear about this. I hear many experts out there that they went to a seminar or they took a course or, they actually read all the books. And that's fantastic. But let me tell you, there is nothing like having somebody that actually managed, implement, grew business, right? And learn from the mistakes. And I think that's what my customers appreciate the most. They always say, Rosa, the way you told us the story we totally related to that. And so we understand that you can understand us because you went through the same thing. And so I think that's my biggest differentiation with a lot of the people out there that might have a 5-year experience being in sales for B2B. And I'm like, I've done more. I've sold enterprise, I've managed people, I've managed vice presidents, and of different cultures, right? Like, different ages, different cultures, different nationalities and backgrounds. And that all brings that whole holistic idea of what culture is and what growing a business is. So I believe that is one of my biggest differentiators.
That's fantastic, Rosa. I definitely see that happening for these leaders in Latin America once they get to that realization of what brought us here won't get us there, right? They're plateauing. They're looking for that consultant, but a lot of the times, as you said, they find what I call bookshelf consultants, someone that's consumed a lot of theory, but maybe don't have the same tenure or the same years of experience, the same experience under the belt to go and say, hey, not only this is the theory, this is how I have applied it. These are the scenarios that I typically see, the challenges when I'm trying to implement these theories, and this is how I can successfully implement it and bring these plans to fruition. You've been in those shoes. You've come from SDR to Chief Revenue Officer. I remember you mentioned you are Latina, but that you grew up in the States. You grew up in the environment of Silicon Valley and all these startups getting funding round after funding round, and then how that cash became a little bit more scarce or just more expensive to get after the pandemic. And you've been through all of that experience advising companies on how to, let's say, reshuffle or adjust their operations, always based on first, what is their vision? What is the buyer's journey of their customers or the products or services they're selling, and then re-engineering the process as deep or as little as it needs to get them to the next level. I think that's very amazing, and it's definitely going to bring a lot of impact into the Latin American market, which is continuing to grow. There are every day more and more cases of funding and unicorns coming out of LATAM. So there's definitely a big opportunity there to operate. Rosa, is there anything you would like to share with the audience, with anyone that's looking at your listing and considering if you're a good fit for them?
Oh, I would stay here an hour talking to you because I have so many stories to share with these leaders and founders. But I wanted to leave something for them to think about this. What I've learned in Latin America, and this is one of the reasons I am, I still work a lot in the US, but I have actually turned my focus into Latin America, is the fact that with artificial intelligence, with software, the amount of expertise and talent that I found in Latin America is at the par or even better of what I found here in Austin, Texas, where I am. Here is where a lot of the founders happen. This is where all the, the mecca of the VCs and the next level of inventions and founding. I have found that level of expertise and talent in Latin America. And the only thing that they need, I believe, is just a little bit of guidance so they can understand that they can be as global and they can become a unicorn just as much as any of the companies in here, because they do have the talent than everybody else has in here. And now everybody's global, and I want them to feel like with me, they can have somebody they can trust. But most importantly, and this is something that I've noticed, is they are capable. They are capable to get there. And I know it doesn't seem, because in the United States it's a lot faster and there's a lot more money, but believe it or not, I know a lot more VCs that are looking to get to the investment in Latin America. So you are capable, you can do it. All you need is just a little bit of guidance and coaching, like any other great team, to make it there, to get there. So that's the message I want to make sure that everybody knows and understands.
That's fantastic, Rosa. It can happen whether you're looking after your next funding round or you're looking to ring the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. It can happen. Rosa Services can take you there. Thank you, Rosa, so much for sharing more details about your consulting or sales consulting services so that users of the CloudTools Marketplace can identify if this is a good fit for them or not. Rosa, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I guess I will catch you on the next one. Thank you so much, Rosa.
Thank you so much, Eddie.